All right, good morning. Now today we're going to be doing a little bit of some earth science. Do either of you remember what a convergent boundary is?
I'm only 7.
Why are you in my 8th grade class?
Because I'm very smart.
All right.
I don't.
Is that when the plates move?
That's exactly right. Now, there are 3 different ways that a plate could move. They can either be moving together, apart, or beside each other. What do you think the convergent one would be?
Together.
Convergent?
Yes.
So it's moving side by side.
She was correct. They are moving together because when you converge, you move together. So, when these plates come together, they're normally oceanic plates and a land plate, or continental plates. Continental plates are less dense, so when they come together, let's say this is our oceanic plate, this is our continental, the oceanic plate will actually go underneath the other one. As this breaks off, as it goes down, it heats up, because it enters, what is this next ring down? If we're on the crust, what's the next ring? You've got the interior of the Earth.
There's going to be magma there.
So you're right. So if we're on the crust, our next layer down will be the mantle. The mantle is very hot. It is over 6,000 degrees. Most rocks melt before they reach that 6,000 degrees. So as they go down, they will come back up and form mountains. Or, if that keeps coming up, it will turn into a volcano. Now, do either of you guys know the 4 different types of volcanoes?
No.
All right. So our first one is the really tall one. This you normally find such as Mount Hood. This is a composite volcano, which means that over time it just adds layers on top of it. Our next one is the one that we are very close to, and it's called a supervolcano. They look really flat, they dip down, and they keep going.
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, brilliant. This is called a caldera because it's a cauldron. Now, these are 2 of the 4 different kinds, but there's a lot of similarities between them. For example, these are both made when the plates collide. What about a divergent?
So it's moving away.
They are moving away. Would there be volcanoes in a divergent? If plates are moving away from each other?
On the other sides.
On the other sides? Yes, but what about right here?
So
If we're pulling apart, that narrows the crust.
So yeah. So you're closer to the mantle, which makes it so they can break through a little easier, right?
This is Hawaii. Hawaii is just one big volcano that over time, the eruptions underwater made the mountains, which are really, really tall. But we don't see them as very tall because they're underwater. Now, the one thing that really affects all of this is the viscosity. What is viscosity?
So would that be your thickness?
Thickness of
The lava or magma, right?
a liquid.
A liquid, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, in terms we're talking.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No.
That's about as good of a description. It's the flow rate of a liquid. That's viscosity. So let's say we have water. Would water have a high viscosity or a low viscosity? The higher the viscosity, the slower it moves.
So it'd have a low viscosity.
All right. Now, if you could come up here, we're going to do a lab based on viscosity.
Both of us?
Both of them, of course. Now, you said the water has a low viscosity, which is correct. So how long do you think it's going to take to get from the top to the bottom?
2 seconds.
I I'd say 1.2 seconds.
All right. So we have a 16th of a cup.
I counted about 1.3.
Yeah, about a second. So what about dish soap? Dish soap is a little bit thicker.
It's going to have a higher viscosity of water,
Okay.
but a lower viscosity of your clover honey.
All right. So she said about 5 seconds is how long it's going to take for it to go from the top to the bottom here. About 3 seconds. Now, honey is very different than all of this. It moves really slow. So how long do you think it's going to take our honey to reach the bottom?
I'm going to say, give or take, a minute and, okay, we'll do 47 seconds.
47 seconds.
But
Wow.
you mixed
I'd
it
say
with
like
the,
30
you
seconds.
mixed it with that. Let's go choose this.
I said 30.
We're running up on 3 seconds.
It takes a really long time, right? So the more, you guys can sit down now.
Oh, okay.
So the more viscous a liquid, it moves slower. Now, what would that have to do with the lava or magma? Any ideas?
Would that have to do with your eruption?
Yes.
So the higher the viscosity, the more violent the eruption would be,
Perfect. And why is that?
because it takes a lot longer to move to get it to either the boiling point or the, I guess, what do they call it, the pressure point or whatever, for it to shoot out. If it has a lower viscosity, it might just seep out somewhere and move. If it's all one big mass, it's gonna hold its form until it can't hold anymore and explode.
That is perfect. Now, what are the two factors that actually affect the viscosity? We've already talked about one of them,
To do with anything? So like the,
to do with our eruption, our lava. What are the two things that really affect it? Water, and what do you think? Yes, but do you have an idea?
The water percentage versus what you're melting down percentage.
Perfect. So, the more water that's in it, the less violent it's going to be. Now, what we call that melted stuff is silica. Because until it melts, it really doesn't have a name. We just call it silica. So if we have a high water and high silica, what kind of eruption would that be? Would it be really violent, or not at all, or somewhere in
I
between?
think it'd be somewhere in between.
Okay.
Because if you have a lot of land versus a lot of water, you don't really know what percentage you're getting. If you have a lot of both, it might be a bigger eruption in terms of how much debris is going to come out, but it's not going to be violent.
That's correct. Now, thinking about all this, let's think back of the Yellowstone caldera. Does it have a lot of water around it?
No.
So would it be a really big explosion?
Yes.
So about 200 years ago, there was this huge explosion. Calderas are normally called a supervolcano. This explosion affected the climate for 30 years. That was 1/10 of the size of Yellowstone. If Yellowstone went off, the entire northern hemisphere would go into an ice age. Yeah, that's cold to think about. In addition to all this ashfall that falls out, the ash is actually all this lava that as it gets thrown up into the air, it turns to glass. If you inhale that, it will cut your lungs up and you'll suffocate. That's horrible to think about. We wouldn't have to worry about it if we were in Montana. because, you know, the explosion would actually rip us apart. When Mount St. Helens, when Mount St. Helens went off, it leveled an area 10-mile diameter, completely leveled it, just with the pyroclastic surge alone. All that ashfall falls out, done. Because all this is coming out at several hundred degrees, so it would just burn. Now, all of this is related to our viscosity, because if it has a lot of water in it, like Hawaii, it's just nice and you can look at it. If it has low water, big boom. So you guys just learned something about volcanoes, and if you're in Montana, you're doomed.